What is quietly unfolding within Nigeria's military ranks is far more serious and far more complex than the official version Nigerians have been fed so far. Contrary to the Defense Headquarters' insistence that only 16 officers are under investigation for indiscipline and breach of service regulations, credible military sources now reveal that at least 35 officers and personnel are currently being detained over an alleged coup plot against President Bola Tinubu's government. This discrepancy alone raises red flags. On Monday, the Defense Headquarters issued a carefully worded statement signed by the Director of Defense Information, Major General Samaila Uba, framing the matter as a limited disciplinary issue involving 16 officers who would be tried before military panels. But behind the scenes, sources say the scale is far wider, spanning the Army, Navy, Air Force, and even a paramilitary organization. Those currently in detention reportedly include a brigadier general, 2 colonels, 5 lieutenant colonels, a wing commander, 8 majors, a Navy lieutenant commander, 2 squadron leaders, 5 captains, a lieutenant, and 10 non-commissioned officers. While the majority, 33 of them, are said to be from the north, the list also includes officers from the south, such as Army Captain A. Yusuf from Osun State and Squadron Leader Zuzu, a senior Air Force officer from Bayelsa State. This detail alone undercuts any simplistic attempt to regionalize the issue. Sources accuse the military authorities of deliberately downplaying the numbers and sanitizing the narrative. According to insiders, some officers were allegedly coerced into admitting involvement under duress, while others were reportedly invited back from overseas courses only to be detained on arrival. If true, this points to a process driven more by predetermined conclusions than transparent investigation. This saga did not begin today. Back in October 2025, Sahara reporters first exposed the arrests of several senior officers by the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, in Abuja over an alleged coup plot. At the time, the Defense Headquarters flatly denied any such plot, insisting the arrests were unrelated. Yet now, in a striking reversal, the same authorities have officially acknowledged that allegations of plotting to overthrow the government are indeed part of the findings. Even more troubling are reports about the conditions of detention. By January 2026, at least 5 detained officers had reportedly fallen ill, with 2 collapsing in custody. Sources claim they were moved from an initial DIA facility to an underground military cell in Abuja, described as dark, poorly ventilated, and harsh. Families say they have been kept in the dark, denied access to lawyers, and blocked from visiting their loved ones, raising serious human rights concerns. The political undertones cannot be ignored either. The reported raid on the Maitama residence of former Petroleum Minister Timipre Silva added another layer of intrigue. Though Silva confirmed the visit, he dismissed any link to the alleged plot as politically motivated, a claim that resonates in a climate where trust in institutions is already fragile. For Nigerians, this case touches a raw nerve. Our history with military interventions makes any hint of a coup deeply unsettling, but equally disturbing is the possibility of opacity, coercion, and institutional doublespeak. When official figures clash so sharply with insider accounts, the question becomes unavoidable. What exactly is being hidden, and why? As this story develops, transparency will matter just as much as security. Nigerians deserve clarity, not carefully managed narratives, especially when the stability of the republic and the integrity of the armed forces are at stake. According to exclusive reports from Sahara reporters, at least 35 Nigerian military officers are currently being held in detention over what authorities are calling an alleged coup plot against President Bola Tinubu's government. Now, if you've been following the news, you might remember that the defense headquarters came out on Monday with a statement saying only 16 officers were arrested and are being investigated. But here's where things get interesting and, frankly, quite troubling. Multiple sources within the military are now saying that the actual number is much higher than what's being officially reported. This discrepancy alone raises some serious questions about transparency and what exactly is going on behind the scenes. Let me break this down for you because the details matter here. The statement from the defense headquarters, which was signed by Major General Samaila Uba, the Director of Defense Information, tried to frame this whole situation as a routine disciplinary matter. They titled it as an update on disciplinary cases involving 16 officers investigated for indiscipline and breach of service regulations. Notice the language there. It's very carefully worded, almost downplaying the severity of what we're actually talking about. The statement referenced an earlier press release from October 2025 when these arrests first came to light, but it notably avoided using the word coup initially, instead focusing on terms like indiscipline and breaches of service regulations. But according to military insiders who spoke to Sahara reporters, the real story is quite different. These sources claim that 35 military personnel are currently in detention, not 16. And here's what makes this even more significant. Out of these 35 individuals, 33 are from northern Nigeria, and the detained group also includes one operative from a paramilitary organization. When you look at the demographic breakdown of who's been arrested, it starts to paint a picture that goes beyond simple military misconduct. Let's talk about the ranks of these officers, because this isn't just about junior soldiers who might have gotten into trouble. We're talking about senior military personnel here. The list includes one Army Brigadier General, which is a very high-ranking position. Then you have 2 colonels, 5 lieutenant colonels, and 1 wing commander from the Air Force, which is the equivalent rank to a lieutenant colonel in the Army. There are also 8 majors, 1 lieutenant commander from the Navy, and 2 squadron leaders from the Air Force. Add to that 5 captains and 1 lieutenant. These are not low-level operatives. These are experienced military officers, many of whom have spent years, even decades, serving the Nigerian armed forces. But it doesn't stop there. The detention list also includes 10 non-commissioned officers. These are the backbone of military operations, the people who execute orders and maintain discipline within their units. Among them are a warrant officer, 5 sergeants, 1 corporal, and 2 lance corporals. When you add it all up, you're looking at a significant cross-section of Nigeria's military hierarchy, spanning multiple branches of the armed forces. Now, something particularly noteworthy about this situation is the regional composition of those detained. According to sources, only 2 of the 35 officers are from southern Nigeria. One is Army Captain A. Yusuf from Osun State in the southwest, and the other is Squadron Leader Zuzu, a senior Air Force officer from Bayelsa State in the south-south region. The remaining 33 are all from northern Nigeria, including the Federal Capital Territory. This geographical pattern is important because it speaks to potential underlying tensions within Nigeria's security apparatus. Tensions that often reflect the broader ethnic and regional dynamics that have characterized Nigerian politics for decades. Let me share with you what one of the military sources told Sahara reporters, and this is quite revealing. The source said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the defense headquarters keeps deceiving Nigerians about the actual number of officers under detention. The source questioned why they would release another statement claiming only 16 officers are involved when the real number is 35 across the Army, Navy, and Air Force. The source suggested that it's obvious the military authorities are hiding something, and even more disturbingly, alleged that some of the arrested officers were forced to admit to the crime under duress, essentially to create a narrative that would suit the report they planned to submit to President Tinubu. Think about that for a moment. If these allegations are true, we're not just talking about a potential coup plot. We're talking about possible forced confessions, which would raise serious questions about due process and the rights of these detained officers, regardless of what they may or may not have done. There's another dimension to this story that makes it even more complex. According to sources, some of these military officers were actually recalled from abroad where they were attending various professional courses. This is significant because it suggests that the investigation was broad enough to reach beyond Nigeria's borders, and it indicates that military intelligence had been tracking these individuals for some time before making their move. When Sahara reporters tried to reach Major General Samaila Uba for comment or clarification, their calls went unanswered. The WhatsApp messages sent to him remained unread and unreplied to at the time of their report. This silence from the Defense Headquarters spokesperson is notable, especially given the gravity of the allegations and the discrepancies in the official narrative. Now, let me take you back a bit because this story has roots that go back several months. In October 2025, Sahara reporters first broke the news about military officers being arrested by the Defense Intelligence Agency here in Abuja over an alleged plot to overthrow President Tinubu's government. For those who might not know, the Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA as it's commonly called, was established back in 1986 and serves as Nigeria's primary military intelligence body. Their job is to gather and provide intelligence to the Nigerian Armed Forces and the Ministry of Defense to counter security threats, protect our national integrity, and support military operations, including the ongoing efforts against terrorism and insurgency that we're all familiar with, particularly in the Northeast. Back in October, military sources had already begun revealing names and departments of senior officers who were being detained. One name that came up early was Lieutenant Commander B. Abdullahi from the Nigerian Navy. What made that October report credible was that sources from within the Defense Headquarters itself confirmed that officers from all three branches of the military, the Army, Navy, and Air Force, had been arrested in what were described as coordinated operations by military intelligence operatives. Apparently, these arrests came after weeks of covert surveillance, which tells you that this wasn't some hasty, reactive operation. This was planned and methodical. Here's where the story gets even murkier. Initially, when these reports first surfaced, the Defense Headquarters flat out dismissed them. They said the arrests were unrelated to any alleged coup plot. They tried to frame it as routine military discipline issues. Nothing to see here, move along. But now, months later, Monday's statement from the DHQ is doing something quite different. It's actually formally acknowledging that allegations of plotting to overthrow the government were among the findings against some of the detained officers. So we've gone from complete denial to partial admission. This shift in the official narrative is something we need to pay attention to because it suggests either that the initial denials were deliberate misinformation or that the investigation uncovered something more serious than initially anticipated. The human cost of all this is something we can't overlook. On January 23, 2026, Just days ago, Sahara reporters reported that at least 5 of the detained officers had fallen ill while in custody. 2 of them reportedly collapsed due to worsening conditions in their detention facility. And when I tell you about these conditions, you need to understand how serious this is. According to sources, these officers were transferred from their initial DIA detention facility to what's being described as an underground military cell in Abuja. This place is reportedly dark and poorly ventilated. We're talking about conditions that any human rights organization would immediately flag as potentially inhumane. The families of these detained officers have been crying out for help, raising concerns about what they describe as inhumane treatment. These officers have been held incommunicado, which means they haven't been allowed to communicate with anyone outside. They've been denied access to lawyers, denied access to their relatives. Some of the spouses told Sahara reporters that they weren't even informed when their husbands were transferred between detention facilities. They've been barred from visits since the arrests first happened. Imagine being the wife or husband of one of these officers, not knowing where your spouse is, whether they're being treated humanely, whether they're sick, whether they're even alive. That's the reality these families are living with right now. This case has also attracted political attention in ways that extend beyond the military. There were reports that military operatives raided the Maitama residence of Timipre Silva, who served as Minister of State for Petroleum Resources under former President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, Silva has confirmed that yes, military operatives did visit his residence, but he strongly denied any involvement in any coup plot. He's called attempts to link him to this matter politically motivated, which isn't surprising given Nigeria's history of using security investigations as tools for political score settling. So what does all of this mean? What are we really looking at here? Well, there are several layers to unpack. First, there's the question of whether there was actually a genuine coup plot, or whether this is something else entirely. In Nigeria's history, we've seen real coup attempts, and we've also seen alleged coup plots that turned out to be exaggerated or even fabricated to settle political scores or consolidate power. Without independent verification and transparent judicial processes, it's hard to know which category this falls into. Second, there's the issue of transparency and accountability. The discrepancy between the official number of detained officers and what sources are reporting is deeply concerning. If the government is not being truthful about something as basic as how many people are in detention, what else are they not being truthful about? This matters because in a democracy, the public has a right to know what's happening, especially when it involves something as serious as alleged threats to constitutional order. Third, we need to think about the treatment of the detained officers. Regardless of what these individuals may have done or planned to do, they have rights. The reports of forced confessions, inhumane detention conditions, denial of legal representation, and lack of family access are all serious violations of basic human rights standards. Even if someone is guilty of planning a coup, which is obviously a serious crime, they still deserve due process. They still deserve to be treated humanely while in custody. That's what separates a democracy from a dictatorship. Fourth, there's the ethnic and regional dimension that we cannot ignore. The fact that 33 out of 35 detained officers are from northern Nigeria is striking. Now, I'm not saying this necessarily means anything sinister, but in a country like Nigeria, where ethnic and regional tensions have historically played a significant role in politics and military affairs, this demographic pattern deserves scrutiny. Is this simply where the alleged plotters happen to be from, Or does it reflect deeper fissures within the military along regional lines? We should also consider the broader political context. President Tinubu's government has faced its share of challenges since taking office. There have been economic difficulties, security challenges continue in various parts of the country, and political opposition has been vocal. In such an environment, an alleged coup plot, whether real or exaggerated, can serve multiple purposes. It can be used to justify increased security measures, to crack down on perceived enemies, or to rally public support by creating a sense of external threat. Let me also point out something that might not be immediately obvious. The military's decision to recall officers from international courses suggests a level of panic or urgency within the security establishment. When you pull people out of professional development programs abroad, you're making a statement that this is serious enough to disrupt normal military operations and career progression. This either means the threat was genuine and imminent, or someone at the top believed it was. The involvement of the Defense Intelligence Agency is also worth considering. The DIA is not just any security organization. It's the military's primary intelligence arm, responsible for some of the most sensitive security operations in the country. When the DIA moves, it usually means they've been working on something for a while. The fact that they conducted what sources describe as weeks of covert surveillance before making arrests suggests this wasn't a knee-jerk reaction to some rumor. They were building a case, gathering evidence, watching people. But here's what concerns me most about this entire situation. We're now several months into this, and we still don't have clear, transparent information about what's actually happening. The military keeps changing its story. First, there was no coup plot, just disciplinary issues. Then there were 16 officers arrested. Now sources say it's actually 35. The government says they'll be arraigned before military judicial panels, but we haven't seen that happen yet in any public way. The families can't see their loved ones. Lawyers are being denied access. Some of the detained officers are reportedly falling ill from poor conditions. This is not how things should work in a democracy under the rule of law. Even military justice, which operates under different rules than civilian justice, should still adhere to basic standards of fairness, transparency, and humane treatment. What we're seeing here looks more like a situation where the government has decided these officers are guilty and is now trying to create a process that validates that predetermined conclusion. I think it's also important to ask ourselves some hard questions. If there was a genuine coup plot, why wouldn't the government want to be transparent about it? Wouldn't they want to show Nigerians the evidence, demonstrate that they stopped a serious threat, and use it as an example of why citizens should support the security services? The fact that they're being so secretive, that the numbers don't add up, that conditions are reportedly so harsh, and that there's no transparency, all of this makes you wonder if the full story is something different from what we're being told. There's also the question of what happens next. These officers are supposedly going to be arraigned before military judicial panels. But when? Under what conditions? Will their trials be open? Will they have proper legal representation? Will evidence be presented in a way that can be independently verified? Or will this be a closed-door process where the outcome is predetermined and justice is merely performative? For the families of these detained officers, every day brings more anguish. These are people who have dedicated their lives to serving Nigeria in uniform. Their spouses and children are now left in limbo, not knowing what's happening, unable to provide support, unable to even confirm their loved ones' basic welfare. That's a cruel position to put anyone in, regardless of what allegations are being made. Looking at this from a wider angle, This situation reflects some troubling trends in Nigerian governance and security. We've seen increasing reports of security agencies acting with impunity, of due process being sidelined in the name of national security, of narratives being controlled and manipulated by those in power. This is the end of our news update. Please click the icon on the top right corner of your screen to watch my next video. You will enjoy it. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.